One day, you could be watching your favorite superstar lighting up the scoreboard and playing like an absolute beast. But the next season, he suddenly drops off. That doesn't happen too often, because in most cases, it's a slow and steady decline. In this video, I want to take a look at three former stars who were once iconic players in the league. But over the years, they became, I don't want to say a laughingstock, but it's been painful to watch. They're clearly not as good as they once were, yet they're still trying to hold on to their former glory. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and today, let's take a look at Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, and Draymond Green. What caused their inevitable decline, and why did their games drop off so drastically in such a short period of time? Let's start with Russell Westbrook. Now, as most of you know, it wasn't that long ago where he was considered a top 10 and even a top 5 player in the league. He was dominating, he was carrying the Thunder on his back after Durant left, even having a season averaging a 30-point triple-double. Heck, even now, in 2021, Westbrook is still close to averaging a triple-double. His raw numbers are still there. However, a common criticism for him has always been his inconsistency. One night, he'll score 40 points with like 13 rebounds and 15 assists. The next night, he'll score like 20 points on 7 for 22 shooting. Another criticism has been his habit of stat chasing. Even back then, he was criticized for it. We'd see him stealing rebounds from his bigs, and his teammates would often just let him grab the rebound to pad his stats. We'd also see him chase that double-digit number when it came to assists. I wouldn't go as far as to call him a selfish player, as everyone who played with him before absolutely loved him. His teammates have always loved him. But on the court, you could tell these habits affected their games negatively. Back in 2017, he even got called out for it. In a game against the Suns near the end of the season, the Suns had a massive lead, but Westbrook stayed in the game to pad his assist numbers. Jared Dudley noticed this and said, "Fourth quarter, we had such a big lead and the only thing he needed was assists, so the whole game plan changed. He was still in the game down 20, 25, and you could see he was being real passive, so we just stayed home. And if he was going to do a drop-off, we were going to foul and make them earn it. If he was going to earn it, it was going to be somewhere else." Another Suns player, Tyler Ulis, also confirmed what he saw. That's all he was trying to do. He was wide open trying to find guys. We stuck to them, ran guys off the line, and it didn't happen. These are hard habits to get rid of, and we see sometimes it carried over to the playoffs as well, where Westbrook-led teams have severely underperformed. To make matters worse, his athleticism has slowly declined over the years. While we still see him pull out an insane play every now and then, he's not doing it every night anymore. He's not as fast as he once was. He doesn't jump as high anymore, he doesn't have that same explosive first step that made him so special. As a result, his scoring efficiency has dropped off across the board. He's standing around on offense even more, just staring at the ball. His individual offensive rating is one of the worst in the league. He's taking the highest percentage of long twos in his entire career, mostly because he's struggling to drive past defenders like he used to. His defense is even worse, as so many times he's barely even giving effort. Westbrook, he's never been the favorite of analytics nerds, as he's well known for taking low-efficiency shots. But now, it's even more apparent than ever. The sad part is, he wasn't even that bad on the Rockets. Playing alongside James Harden throughout the season, he transformed his game and started taking a ton of shots at the rim. Look at this comparison. On the Rockets, 42% of his total shots came within 3 feet of the basket. On the Wizards, only 18% came from there. That's ridiculous, because that's a strong suit for Westbrook, yet he's not taking much anymore. I don't know if it's because he's just too slow and too fatigued to get to the rim, or he just doesn't feel like driving to the basket. You can never tell what Westbrook's thinking. Even for him, this difference in shot selection is massive compared to recent years. Now, let's move on to Carmelo Anthony. You know, I'll give Melo credit. I didn't think he would last this long in the NBA after his departure from the Knicks. Even back in 2016 and 2017, it looked like he was on the tail end of his career. But from his time in OKC until now, it's been a mixed bag of results, Some good, some bad, but to me, it's clear that his game was never suited to age well. Just leaving the numbers aside, the fact that any NBA player can survive off of his style of play is a ridiculous notion, especially when that player is as slow and sluggish as Anthony. While he's still a productive bench player, even going off on some nights, taking a deeper look at the metrics, Melo is hurting this team way more than helping. Out of the Blazers' top 8 most played 5-man lineups, 4 of them include Melo. And in all 4, the team has a negative net rating with him on the floor. Some lineups with him are severely in the negative. All of their best lineups are the ones where Melo is not playing. The sad thing is, it's been this way for a while, since he was in OKC. What exactly caused this drop-off, despite him carrying the Knicks for such a long time? Well, the truth is, it's hard for me to say this, but even during most of his time on the Knicks, Melo was hardly ever a positive. In some years, sure, like in 2013. But in most years, he was a black hole who stagnated the offense and the ball movement was always terrible whenever he was on the floor. He would get the ball in the post or the elbows, throw up a tough fadeaway shot, and hit them maybe 40% of the time, and I'm being generous here. His playstyle just wasn't suited for the modern NBA. But because he had the ball on so many possessions, of course, it looks like he was carrying the team on his back. Years later, that hasn't changed much as he moved teams. Even when he's a bench player, he still demands a significant slice of the possessions. On the Blazers, he has the 3rd highest usage rate on the team, behind Lillard and McCollum. I don't exactly blame the Blazers for that, cause they don't have many options. The truth is, Melo only knows how to play in his own way. He's played the same way for basically his entire career, but as he got older, he hasn't aged well because he doesn't have the speed to pull off the moves he used to do. Many of his peers have adapted and adjusted their games to be more suited to a modern offense. Think of guys like Chris Paul and LeBron James, and even Dwight Howard. He's taken a whole different role than before, doing pick and rolls more instead of demanding the ball in the post. But for Melo, he hasn't changed. Even defensively, sometimes he shows more effort, but just the lack of energy and lateral quickness hinders him against any fast player. Melo's just in a weird spot. Initially, he came to Portland wanting to revitalize his career, and in some ways, he has. We still see remnants of his superstar self, but his playstyle, his entire game is a shell of its former self. Draymond Green. This might come as a surprise to you, cause besides his scoring, Draymond is still pretty much the same player he's always been. A great all-around player, the leader of the team in assists, the guy who was the perfect fit for the Warriors during their championship years. However, there comes a point where his scoring has become so bad that he's not a threat in the slightest anymore. By the numbers and playing time, Dre is one of the worst scorers in the league, probably the worst at his position. Once known as he was never a lethal 3-point shooter, he was still passable. If you left him wide open, he made you pay. Now, defenses are simply ignoring him. He can get all the space he wants, yet still can't hit anything. Dre is having his worst 3-point shooting season since his rookie year, and he's gotten progressively worse at scoring since 2016. His offensive plus-minus is negative 2.7, and his shooting from every spot on the floor has been dreadful. So what exactly caused such a large drop-off offensively for Draymond? I think it's a couple factors, but the main thing is the absence of Klay. The Warriors as a team have severely regressed offensively, it's not just Draymond. But without Klay, there just isn't much room for him to operate. He doesn't have much space when shooting threes, and even if he is wide open, his confidence is all but gone. Back in the day, Steph and Klay drew so many defenders out to the perimeter, which gave Draymond a wide open lane to attack the rim and score. That rarely happens anymore. Also, the addition of Andrew Wiggins has been kinda awkward. The Warriors were once known as the best spacing team in the league. They ran the ideal pace and space offense, which generated so many clean looks for everyone on the team. Wiggins and Kelly Oubre as well, both of them take up so much space and clog the offense. Individually, they haven't been bad, but because they aren't huge threats on the perimeter, defenders can sag off and close out on Draymond, and Steph too. Draymond thrives when the offense is spread out, but he simply doesn't have the space he needs anymore. The Warriors in 2015 through 2018, that was the perfect situation for him to thrive. I don't think he'd have the same impact on any other team. But those days are over and the roster has changed, and not to his advantage. It also doesn't help that he's had some nagging injuries throughout the years, injuries that aren't that serious, like a sore knee here and there, a bruised foot, multiple foot injuries actually, a handful of injuries in the lower half of his body which has affected his speed. At times, it looks like he's hesitant to even drive to the rim and collide with another player, which we saw very often back in the day. Perhaps those injuries got to his head and he's been more cautious of throwing his body around. Generally speaking, undersized big men don't do well as their career progresses, so Draymond is following the trend. As his speed and agility wanes, it's hard to make up the height difference with sheer effort and hard work like he used to. It's unfortunate, but it's how it is. Maybe if Klay comes back, maybe if the team retools their roster, Draymond's scoring would go back to normal. That's part of it, but I think this is just the effect of him getting older. Anyway, that's all folks. Those were 3 NBA stars, or former stars, who have not aged well. Maybe it's an issue with playstyle, or maybe they're not in the right situation anymore. Westbrook, Melo, and Draymond were at the top of the world, 3 of the most praised players at their peaks. But now, it's all going downhill. Let me know your thoughts on them, and do you agree with my assessment? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.